Congressman McCaul joins us again here on Capitol Tonight, Republican from Austin and chairman once again of the Homeland Security Committee. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Paul.
We'll talk about your selection to continue to serve as chairman, but let's get your reaction to the president's speech on immigration and his executive actions. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, I think what struck me very odd was that he said, Congress says that I don't have the authority to do this. He said over 20 times in his presidency that he does not have the legal authority to do this, and that that's not how democracy works. And now he's doing it. In our view, it's an abuse of authority. Whether it's unconstitutional, I think the courts are going to decide that issue. This is going around the American people, particularly after the last election, circumventing the Congress. However you feel on the issue, and it's a very heated, emotional issue. This is not the right way to do it. There's a right way and a wrong way, and I think he chose the wrong way to do it.
During his speech, he indicated that Republicans and Democrats alike in previous administrations have used their executive authority and, reading stories, I guess, during the Reagan administration for a certain amount of Nicaraguan citizens. Same thing, even Eisenhower with Cubans. Why is the circumstance different now?
Well, I think it's very different. Number one, President Reagan and Bush and Eisenhower in that case worked with the Congress, and in fact were reacting and responding to congressional action. In this case, he is taking unilateral action really in defiance of the Congress and in circumvention of the Congress. That's a very big distinction. Prosecutorial discretion, I was a federal prosecutor, typically used on a case-by-case basis or in a humanitarian way, but I think to apply in a huge swath of discretion to 5 million people to give them amnesty, we believe that that's going beyond discretion and now is an abuse of authority.
He did mention 3 points, and the first one was more resources for the border. And I know border security is key for you and legislation that you have out there. What do you think is involved in that? Do you know what the president's talking about when he's saying more resources for the border?
Well, I was briefed by the Secretary of Homeland Security yesterday before the speech on the points, and frankly, that's one point we can agree on. I think the border security approach, I think we have to get the security piece done, and we have to do it first, and I'll tell you why. Because every time we talk about amnesty and immigration reform, what do we see at the border is a huge wave of illegal immigrants trying to cross in. We saw 6 after amnesty was granted without the enforcement, and then we saw it when DACA was passed by the president or by executive action. We saw the 60,000 children then crossing over the Rio Grande Valley sector in our state. So methodically and intelligently, you have to get the security piece done at the border as the first step, and then the immigration reform debate over how to fix a broken immigration system. I think we all agree on that. That comes sequentially, and I think he's putting the cart before the horse here. And I think what we're going to see, unfortunately, as the governor talked about, is a wave of illegals now responding that, hey, if I get in, I can stay too.
When he was talking about this, again, kind of anticipating the concern that Republicans have on this, said, now we're not going to take anybody who's recently come or anybody in the future. It's who we're dealing with in the here and now. Could you look at this, whether you agree with executive authority or not, to as a stopgap measure as the border security function takes place as well? Because I don't know, is there a timeline, like how quickly can you secure the border while you have all these millions of undocumented people here?
Well, I think you're going to see when we have a more friendly Senate coming in, we can govern now in the Congress. We can pass legislation out of the Congress, which we haven't been able to do. I think you're going to see us come up with our own agenda. And perhaps there is some, hopefully there's some room to work with the president on some of this stuff, but to do it the way he did it unilaterally is not the right way to do this. And I think it just welcomes a new wave of illegal immigrants. I talked to a high-level State Department official yesterday, and she told me that they are very concerned now that just as with DACA, the traffickers messaged that if you come, you can stay. They're going to exploit, even though the president says you have to be here for 5 years, like you mentioned. The traffickers don't get into the weeds on that. As amnesty's coming, the president's allowing for it, and come on in. So we're going to see, I think, a wave of Central Americans now we have the same phenomenon, the same problem. And again, I think the security piece, and then we debate reform. And that should be the sequence of events.
You are going to continue to serve. Congratulations.
Nice.
As chairman of Homeland Security Committee. What's next for the committee? I know obviously the immigration discussion is here. What else are you anticipating almost immediately?
Well, I am, like it or not, Paul, I'm front and center in this debate. I have an oversight hearing with the Secretary the first week we get back after Thanksgiving. The border security bill, you're going to see, is a very strong bill. I know a lot of statewide ran on that issue. It is a federal issue that needs to be dealt with at the federal level. And I think for the first time, I'm very excited that working with my counterpart in the Senate, we've talked about this, to sort of hotline a bill where I can get it passed through the House and the Senate will pass it, we'll put it on the President's desk. That's going to be, I think, the top line priority for me. Cybersecurity continues to be an issue as the threats coming out of Russia and China and Iran are getting worse, not better. And then finally, foreign fighters. I'm investigating the travel that foreign fighters have, ISIS, out of Iraq and Syria through Turkey to Western Europe and then into the United States. And then the final piece would be the radicalization piece within the United States. So those are real threats to the homeland that we'll be very focused on. And I hope to have an impact in the next Congress. It was a great honor to once again be asked by my colleagues to serve in this capacity.
Well, Congressman, we always appreciate you stopping by. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and best of luck as Washington.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
And we're back with more Capitol tonight right after this.